Review of House of the Dragon series. The 9th episode, The Usurpation of the Throne by the Green Council. The 9th episode of the House of the Dragon series, entitled The Green Council, represents the first official blow against Rhaenyra's claim to the throne, because the Greens are trying to usurp his seat of power in general. Follow me with the House of the Dragon series review. Before starting to review this episode, it is not out of place to mention one thing. House of Dragons is a series based on the universe created by George R.R. Martin, and this universe not only contains one of the best series of 2022, rather, without a doubt, this series is one of the most real victories of the media in recent years. With these interpretations, House of Dragons is very different from Game of Thrones, because it is run by different people and uses a different style. So, for some, it may come as a surprise that Episode 9 isn't the big turning point or spectacular moment that Game of Thrones was. From this point of view, it may be scary for many who had high expectations to say this, because some believe that the 9th episode of the season, titled Green Council, will be something like Battle of the Bastards or another Blackwater. Instead, it's just the first part of a two-part finale that concludes in Episode 10. I hope such expectations will not harm this episode, because this episode is just as good as the rest of the season, with some truly amazing performances. The Green Council doesn't focus on a single battle or dragon, but in a similar way to some episodes of Game of Thrones, this episode focuses on a specific group of characters. Actually, watching this episode, we're just focusing on the characters that live in the center of the kingdom and how they react to the news of King Viserys' death. That being said, what is happening in this uproar can only be described as a desperate move to hold on to power. But the more interesting aspects of House of the Dragon come from its differences from Game of Thrones. Simply put, Dragon Clan has a much tighter focus on events. The reason is very clear. Because this series is concentrated in the corridors of power of Westeros and has avoided the dispersion of its actors in very far distances. For example, when a character like Corlys Velaryon Steve Toussaint becomes too far from the center of the show's story, the show simply leaves the narrative of his situation. With the same point of view, The Green Council is an episode that is built around the main strengths of the series and even doubles them as much as it can. While Game of Thrones was split between a large cast spread across several continents, The Green Council focuses entirely on a subset of dragonborn characters trapped in a relatively small space. As a result, neither Rhaenyra Imadassine or Daemon, Matt Smith appear in The Green Council, and the episode never leaves the center of the kingdom. Therefore, claustrophobia, or the fear of being stuck in a tight space with no way out, is the focal point of this episode. In this episode, Addo Hightower Rhys-Ifans repeatedly emphasizes the importance of restraining people, especially after the murder of Lord Lyman Bisbury Bill Patterson. Addo refuses to remove the body from the small council chamber. The door will stay closed until we're done, he advises the audience. Later, Addo gathers the nobles present to swear an oath of allegiance. It also warns them, "You will not leave this room without announcing your intention." Overall, the charm and tension in this episode is a credit to writer Sarah Hess and director Claire Kellner, who have turned The Green Council into a paranoid hour of television. On the other hand, The Green Council, from its beginning to the final sequence, emphasizes the feeling that the fate of the Seven Kingdoms is about to be practically a family war. In fact, the 9th episode of Dragon Family shows more than any episode in the series the stupidity and madness of this power struggle. This means that the Green Council satirically uses all these conspiracies and machinations to put Aegon on the throne and makes fun of it. For example, everyone involved knows that Aegon is not fit to rule, because during this episode, Sir Eric warns his brother, Aegon is not fit to rule. Or in another scene, Aemon describes his brother as a person without tact. Interestingly, even Aegon himself protests his fate and says, "I am not fit for the kingdom." As a result, so much blood is spilled to support a monster who doesn't want to be king. On the other hand, all these rebellions and plots are based on a misunderstanding, motivated by Queen Alicent Olivia Cook. She misinterprets the last words of her dead husband King Viserys Paddy Considine about Aegon the Conqueror and the prince that was promised. As a result, this misunderstanding gives Alicent the moral position to claim the throne for her son, thus disqualifying Rhaenyra from inheriting the position. There is one point hidden among these struggles for power, which is interesting to know. That point is nothing more than that Game of Thrones was based on a series that deconstructed various fantasy stories, and it's good to see House of Dragons doubling down on that idea, making it clear that fantasy prophecies have often been prone to self-serving distortion. But with such events shown in this episode, the 10th and final episode will definitely focus on the other side of the conflict, Rhaenyra. And interestingly, the next episode is called The Black Queen for very good reasons. But in general, the 9th episode of the series showed a huge range of restraint and control over the story. Because basically seeing how something falls apart in seconds is truly terrifying. In the end, it must be said, the 9th episode of House of the Dragon breaks the tradition of having a huge battle-oriented episode at such a moment. Instead, the series focuses on its deeper politics and ramifications as we prepare to begin what is set to be one of the deadliest wars in Westeros history. This episode may not be as emotional as the previous episode, but the Green Council nonetheless serves as a great prelude to the end of Season 1 and even an overview of Season 2 and beyond.